Welcome to Whispers from Reddit, where I find interesting, scary, creepy, outlandish stories from Reddit, and I share them with you guys. Story number 1. I was about 7 or 8 years old and went with my family to this man-made lake family park place in South Georgia. Basically, a big dugout pond that the owner put a bunch of beach sand and palm trees around and charged admission for people to come, park their cars, grill, and swim for the day. Also, it had a big, unsafe as hell water slide that kids got hurt on. So, where my family would park was in front of this little island, and there was a clump of sand about 30 yards off the shore. I was not the best swimmer, but the depth was just above my head, so I could bop up and down and bounce out to this island. Bouncing out to that little island one day, we were there. My foot came down onto what felt like a face. Felt like what was a nose on my toe. The thing I remember most is the feeling of hair flowing between my toes. That feeling of fine hair waving in water. I freaked out and for the longest time just sat on the shore. I was a kid and I didn't think too much about it or know what to think. I can still remember the scared parents going around yelling this kid's name, asking if anyone had seen the little boy. They pulled his body from under the water right in front of that island. I'm 47 now and can still remember the feeling of that hair between my toes. Story 2. My grandparents are Dutch immigrants in New Zealand, and in the 1970s, they had a caravan that they took out camping in a rural part of the North Island for a little family fun camping trip. My mom and siblings would have been about 10 years or younger at the time. They were way out in the middle of nowhere near a lake in the rainforest, and after the kids had gone to sleep, my grandparents stayed awake for a while, just reading, having a cup of tea. They started hearing strange noises, like footsteps outside and twigs breaking, maybe a hushed voice, but thought they were just paranoid. They were getting a bit freaked out at this point, but assumed it was nothing and they'd be safe. Grandpa told me that he couldn't go to sleep, and he suddenly heard a definite footstep right outside the caravan door. He peeked out the window of the caravan, and it was completely pitch black and no moonlight whatsoever, but he could see the glowing light of what must have been a pretty tall man standing right at the door of the caravan. He could still hear the other footsteps too, even though whoever was smoking this cigarette outside the door was standing dead still. He told me he'd never been so scared in his life, but he had to do something because he had his wife and 4 little kids sleeping inside the caravan. He grabbed his butcher's knife. He was a butcher by profession. Lord knows why he had it on a family camping trip, though. He opened the door to confront or yell or do whatever else he could do to scare the people away. But when he opened the door and he saw no one and heard no one. He thought he was going crazy, but he saw the cigarette butt on the ground outside the door, freshly finished. He got into the car straight away. He had everything ready to go, luckily, because he'd already planned on driving early the next morning anyway. And he drove away with everyone and found somewhere else near a town to stay instead. The story freaks me out every time I think of it. Story 3. This happened to me about 10 years ago. My best friend growing up, Steve, had died unexpectedly. We had grown apart, but had recently started speaking after many years. Steve hated, and I'm using the word hated here, technology. No computer, no cell phone, nothing but a television with an antenna and a landline for good old Steve. I was away on business when I got the word that he had died. Since he never married and was pretty much a son of a bitch, he had been estranged from his family for about 10 years. I saw his brother and sister yesterday. His body was undiscovered for a couple of weeks. That part haunts me to this day. Shortly after returning home, I left again for a trip for a course that was being given in Texas. Sitting in class on my phone, it vibrated. It was Steve. A cold flush swept over me. I was sitting in class, so I didn't answer. I called later that day and expected there was no answer. I'm retired now, but at the time I worked for a satellite telecommunications company. Part of my job was managing back office telecom equipment, so I understood call routing over SS7 networks and routing tables. If the number was reassigned to someone else, they perhaps misdialed my number or dialed in a redial code into his old POTS desk set, but it still creeped me out. I don't believe in ghosts or spirits or any of that, but the weirdness and randomness of that incident makes me rethink some of my assumptions.